What is going on, guys? Let me check my sound levels because I guess I drunkenly played with them. Oh, that's sad. Cody's lab posted this. It says Grant is gone. Oh, can't really see it. Hey, Loic, how you doing, bud? Yeah, Grant Thompson is gone, guys. Super sad.
Hey, Loic, how you doing, bud?
Oh yeah, maybe I need to bring the audio down a little bit. Hang on, let me check. Alright, so check. Let me try going.
Check.
Let me do this. I'm gonna mute my audio. I'm gonna go through my sound program, see if I can get it cleared up some. Let's see if this is any better. I can't tell if it sounds better, but we're gonna see. The interview went really good, actually. They want to bring me on site.
I can't tell if it sounds better.
Yeah, it sounds a lot better. Okay. Oh, but I gotta turn it down a little bit. When I get loud, it gets But yeah. Hey, Retro. Yeah, they want to bring me on site. The only problem is it could take 3 months to get the job because I got to get a security clearance. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to take that one. So we'll see. We're going to do some creepy pastas. This is, we only got one person in here. I don't know what's going on. Come to the stream. Oh, I can read your creepypasta. Yeah, so this is by Retro or Scooter. And it's relatively short, so we can do that real quick. So I read the first one, but I'll read the full thing again. A couple of days ago, we took a vacation. We stayed at a Warren hotel. It was strange. It was a strange small hotel with about 7 rooms, 2 floors, and a seriously creepy atmosphere around it. Next to it was a yellow playground outside. It was run down. Some parts had rotted away over time. The day we all arrived, Me, my sister, mom, and dad. The parking lot was almost empty. We parked and went through the main entrance. There was nobody there. So we rung on the small bell that most hotels have, so someone came out. He was a tall, unkempt guy with short hair. He seemed to be the only guy there. He didn't say a word, just started to walk, handing us a key and took our bags. The rooms were all old and run down. Before I saw one of the numbers, 7 on it, it was right next to ours, 8. But whatever, I walked past the room and I got chills. I was about to go in when I stopped my parents to go unpack the car, but I couldn't help but feel that chill. So after I unpacked, I pulled the door to reveal a brick wall. I was confused. So I was confused and a bit nerved at the thought of what was behind the wall. That night was restless. So many thoughts and so many noises coming from outside. I decided to put my fears aside and check outside the hotel. And this is where it all happened. The corridor was even weirder than the last time I walked through it. It was longer, darker, and had a more sinister than normal. It was a lot sinister than normal, my apologies. When I got outside the hotel, I looked behind me to reveal that where room 7 was, there was no window. I was scared, but so curious. Then I got back to the corridor. It felt there was a strange force repelling me from that door, but I managed to open it. What was before a brick wall was now a regular room. A small gift wrap, the most beautiful pattern, golden lace. A purple ribbon. I opened it, and at the top, to reveal the crusty, slimy film. A pupilled eyeball. It was almost enough to make me puke. When I turned around to see the door was back to being brick, and the window was boarded up. I'm writing this on a computer in the room. I've been here for days. I'm so starving, I think I'll have to consider eating the eyeball. Ooh, that was pretty good. So let's carry on. Let's find some more stories for you late night folk. Might not even be late night for some of you folk, but that's fine. So let's do this. Let's find... Well, this one's got good ratings, but it's probably stupid long. What is this one? There we go. It has been a while. I don't stream as nearly as regularly as I should. Oh, 86 minutes. Yeah, no thank you. Have I read 1999? I don't think so. Ooh, this one's called Don't Let Them In. Let's see how long this one is. 13 minutes. We can do this one. No, it's cool, Loco, because I really haven't been streaming that much anyways. So I totally get it, man. Life happens. I'm still in the busy trying to find work stage. And basically just sitting behind my computer. Not finding that much work because whatever. I got recruiters and stuff looking for me. But alright, let's see what we got. Oh, here's the link. As you know, if you like the story, please rate it on creepypasta.com. It's by Maddie Katie. Or Maddie Kate. Sorry. And you know how I read, so if you want to read along or read before I'm done, it's a healthy one. Oh, she's healthy. Oh, she's healthy. So let's start. Addiction took our mother slowly, rocketed her through it, and sung her to sleep. Sunk deep into the mattress on her bed. When her back teeth fell out, she left them on the side of the bathtub. I was 7. I kept them in a matchbox. The missing pieces of her kept safe, so she wouldn't be lost. So she wouldn't be lost forever. Oh, this is gonna be tough. I'm sorry. So maybe one day we could put her back together. Our house fell around us. We tried our best to raise ourselves. The ceiling had water damage. The bottom stairs had dry rot. And in the winters the radiators bled rust. But it was still our house. And Annie made it a home. My sister Annie mothered me. With lopsided band-aids on bruised knees and lukewarm microwave meals. She told me ghost stories that I didn't mind when I crawled into her bed later on. Too scared to sleep alone. She taught me how to dance barefoot on the living room carpet. Music channel on full volume on the TV, shaking our pre-adolescent hips. She always let me shower first so that I could enjoy the hot water. She never complained when she had to make do with cold. She brushed my hair. Where the hell did it go? I'm sorry. She brushed my hair every day before school, even when I screamed and I hit her when she caught my tangles. Annie was dark-haired like her father, whom he had been, but I was blonde. Annie was desperate to be blonde too, like Marilyn Monroe, like Mom. I think she thought it would make them closer, remind Mom less of her dad. I'd give anything for her to have hands in my hair, her hands in my hair one more time, even if it hurt. She moved to New York when I turned 18 and never came back. I still dream about her sometimes. Keeping up with our mother was impossible, and we learned from a young age that we would always be left behind. It didn't make it any easier. When she was drinking light, she was radiant, and would wake up at 3 a.m. with pancakes dripping in cherry syrup, sometimes when the weather was right, and she'd had enough being drunk alone. She would call our school up and tell them that we both come down with the summer sickness, and we'd drive to the beach instead. I remember being 9 years old in the backseat of the car coming home after one of our ocean days, sucking the salt from my fingers. Annie had just dyed her hair blonde. Her best friend Jane helping her bend over the kitchen sink from behind. I couldn't tell who was the mother and who was the daughter. Radio up and windows down. Wind blowing in this wind. Fuck. Blowing the sky inside. I don't know what's wrong with me reading, guys. I'll get better. When she was drinking heavily, she'd be out all night. Hair piled up like a beauty queen, eyes glazed over and ringed with glitter and black. Sometimes she'd be gone for a day or two. She would never give us advance notice. One day, we would just wake up to an empty house with the fridge packed full of Post-it notes on its door, complete with a smear of Mom's lipstick, an outline of a kiss telling us she'd be back soon. Sometimes she'd bring guys home, filling the table with beer cans and ashtray smoke up to the ceiling. Mom lost in the haze. We'd sleep with pillows over our heads, trying to drown the music they would blast all night. Wake up to strangers on our kitchen table in the morning asking us where they kept the coffee. When Mom drank too little, she fell apart. She wouldn't buy food and the refrigerator went bare. She had chain smoke leaving cigarette burns on the wallpaper up by the stairs like the walls were sick and decay. She barely slept, walking around with blue half moons under her eyes, knuckles raw. She would scream at the slightest thing. I remember once when I spilled a glass of juice on the couch. She looked over at me with dead eyes and dragged me off the carpet. And then she took off every single couch cushion and into the backyard and set them on fire. Annie went to watch from the window and then sat next to me on the floor, back pressed against the skeleton of the seats, head resting in the crater of my collarbones. My collarbones. It looked like a good title. We're gonna keep going. I think Mama's got a drinking problem. It was the worst when Mom drank too much. She'd laugh too loudly and too long at anything and everything until her mouth started to shake and she began to cry into her cereal at breakfast table. Annie shut down when Mom was like this, going somewhere deep inside herself where no one could hurt her. She'd stay up until the morning watching old black and white movies on TV, whispering the lines she knew by heart like prayers. When I was 5 years old, I'd cry when I'd find Mom passed out on her bed. Sure, she would never wake up. Annie would wipe my tears and tell me she was only sleeping, like the princesses in my storybook. We'd sit on Mom's bed together and wait for her to wake up. When we were older, I was the one who would pick Mom off the bathroom floor again and again, and Annie would put her into bed, smoothing her hair off her face, wiping the vomit from her mouth, and changing the clothes if she'd passed out or she'd pissed herself, washing them, and then there was no doubt that Annie was the mother now. It was October, and I was 13, Annie 16. It was a Wednesday night, and Mom had been gone for 2 days. She had called us that morning from a payphone, voice slurring, telling us she was having the best time with all her new friends, and that she hoped we'd be doing fine. When she asked me if I was having a good birthday, I hung up on her. My birthday had been the day before. Annie had given me a pile of presents, strawberry lip gloss and glittery nail polish. I didn't ask where she got the money from. I didn't care. We'd taken the bus to the beach with Jane and ate birthday cake she made for me. Sand getting in the frosting. It tasted like sweetness and the sea, and I savored every bite and scrape of sugar against my teeth. We watched the sun go down, Annie snapping grainy photos on her Nokia as I blew out my candles, wishing over and over that Mom wouldn't come home, that she'd stay gone this time. But that Wednesday night, Annie and I weren't speaking. Anger hung heavy between us, seeping through the floorboards. It began when she tripped at the bottom of the stairs. We'd both laughed, Annie throwing her head back, the gap between her front teeth catching the light. When I'd bent to pick her up, I felt her breath warm against my freckles on my cheeks. I let go of her arms and she fell again, hitting the floor and grinning, shaking her hair from her face. Her breath was heavy with whiskey. I couldn't start picking her up too. Couldn't watch her fall again and again like Mom. I knew she'd never get back up. What'd you hear? I don't know what I said. I'd stare down at her blonde hair hanging over her eyes, and all I could see was our mother. Then I was running, feet slamming the hallway like heartbeats turned loose. I'd run from the kitchen and tipped every bottle we had down the sink, shoving Annie's back as she fought to stop me, catching liquor on her fingers as she fell. She grabbed my shoulders and made me drop the very last bottle. It smashed between us on the floor, glass shards shining like we dragged the stars out of the sky and broke them, like pieces we could never put back. Outside, through the open window, the sky turned pale gold. The clouds, a mess of pink cream smeared across the horizon. I cried then, catching my sister on her knees, picking up the pieces. That was Annie, always trying to fix things, even when it was too late. The smell of food dragged me from my room, my stomach turning traitor inside my rib cage. Annie was cooking pasta, real food not made in the microwave. She'd set the table, Tammy Whitney singing softly from the CD player, Annie gently swaying her hips as she stirred the tomato sauce, rich and warm. As we ate in silence, I forgave her more with every bite. Mom could never cook dinner. Never remembered my favorite, and it had been spaghetti since I was a kid. It never stayed sober long enough to sit up at the table. Annie wasn't Mom. We were washing the dishes when we first heard it. Moth was crawling down the inside of the pane, and I cranked the window to let it out into the dark. From the backyard came a faint sound. I tilted my head to listen, as it was coming from far off, crying. I figured it was Mika, the 2-year-old next door, having a tantrum loud enough for us to catch. Or maybe even Lucky Strike, the cat that belonged to the junkies down the street, begging for food like sometimes he did. I always wanted to feed him when he came around, winding over my ankles, but Annie always stopped me, saying once you started giving it, it would never stop. Looking back, I don't think she was talking about the cat. Annie flipped the Christmas lights strung up on the porch, and we sat on the plastic chairs watching the skies. When we were little, we'd sit outside. Annie would tell me the names of the constellations and the stories of how they came hung up in the night sky. I had to grow up before I realized she made all that up as she went along. It was a game we still like to play now, making up ridiculous stories for the shapes we could pick out. Hey, Tenra. Ah, yes. That one there is Coors Light. I got it there when God dropped it out of his convertible window and never picked it up, she said, nodding sagely behind her smile. Of course, I said, waving my hands and pointing up past the power lines right next to the ashtray, left there by angels on a smoke break. Yeah, they say if you wish on it, all your dreams will come true, said Annie with a grin. Then she stopped laughing. Her voice grew quiet, face tilted up to all those dead stars. Let's wish, Emmy. Let's wish. So we did. The sound of wailing interrupted us. It was getting closer this time. It was definitely human. We turned to one another in confusion. Annie shrugged and I squinted into the black. It sounded like a baby. Lost, tired and alone. It must be Mika, I said, slowly getting to my feet. Maybe he walked around the back. Do you want to call Connie and tell her we'll bring him over? And he didn't reply. I sighed and rolled my eyes. Okay, I guess I'll do everything then. I stepped off the porch, grass soft against my heels. The air smelled like it might rain, fresh and clean and growing. A promise unfulfilled. Annie's voice was strained. I turned to her with a smile. It died on my face when I saw the look on her own. Get inside now. She was staring into the dark past me and opened the door with one hand behind her fingers, fumbling on the latch. I froze barefoot in the dirt. I'd glimpsed at what she was looking at. In the bushes by the back fence, someone was crouching with their knees tucked up neatly under the chin, and his arms wrapped around his legs. His mouth was agape, softly opening and closing as he cried, like a child lost in the dark. No, not like a child. More like someone pretending, mimicking the sound under cover of darkness. Suddenly, they straightened their back, snapping upright, face still obscured by a shadow. They were tall and slim, extraordinarily slim by human standards. Panic made me move, carried forward by the animal instincts left over from the time when people still lived in nature. I was faster than Annie, dragging her inside and slamming the door behind us, hearing it bounce on us as its hinges as I locked it. We watched as the person slowly approached the house with long, deliberate strides. Annie reached for my hand, holding it tight, and turned her face to me, holding my shoulders. Don't turn around, Emmy. Don't turn around. Instinctively, I started to look over my shoulder into the gloom. Annie grabbed my face harder and shook her head. I knew she was serious. Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat, gripping my hand tight enough to hurt the nails digging in, grounding myself. I looked down at our interlocked fingers, both of us, born of the same bones. I'm going to call the cops and everything's going to be... Her voice faltered, stuttering, tears spilled over her lashes. Annie never cried. Your phone isn't on the porch, she whispered. And bile crawled its way up my throat. Her phone was upstairs charging. A soft tapping filled the silence. Annie turned wide-eyed to the window. It was the sound of someone's forehead slowly and repeatedly bumping against the glass. When the blows accelerated, gaining in both speed and strength, skin meeting glass until they were slamming into the window hard enough to shake the panes. A moment later, the tapping sound stopped. I was about to ask Annie if I could look now, when she screamed, followed by the sound of crashing glass and a tremendous crash. Whoever was in our yard had just smashed their face hard enough into the window to shatter it. We both ran upstairs 2 steps at a time, skipping the rotten ones out of habit. I turned to look behind me. Annie yanked my face back before I could see. The sound of glass breaking echoed behind us as we made it to the bathroom and locked the door. A weak, mewling cry, like that of an infant calling for its mother, filled the hallway, trapped between the walls and the entryways. Annie threw her head against the door, feet jammed up against the bathtub, clutching a knife. As she grabbed from the kitchen, I joined her shoulder to shoulder, and we did the same. Slow footsteps started on the stairs, calculated and casual. The crying took on a mocking quality, resembling laughter, arriving in short, still bursts of sound followed by a high-pitched giggling, and then silence, only to start again a moment later. The first door on the upstairs floor was my bedroom, and we heard the distinct sound of slamming open. They were looking for us. "What the F is going on?" I asked Annie, not even bothering to brush away the tears that I couldn't help but keep falling. I watched my sister pick herself up off the floor and brace her hands on the door as we heard the sound of the second door slamming open. Mom's room. The next room in the hallway was the bathroom. Annie pulled me to my feet and handed me the knife. I shook my head and pushed it back to her, terrified of what could happen. If I had to use it, Annie shoved me and I pressed the knife into my hands, thumb pressing hard enough along the edge to draw blood. I watched a winding road of crimson rivulets cascade down her wrists in spite of the pain. Annie continued pushing the blade into my hands. Finally, I took it from her. Something slammed against the wall that Mom's room shared with the bathroom. A high-pitched howl followed. I held my breath and felt my heart beating frantically in the base of my throat. "I'm gonna get my phone from the room," my sister said. I shook my head dramatically in protest. Before I could say a word, Annie clamped a hand over my mouth. I could taste the blood on her hand, sweet and salty, like birthday cake by the ocean. "Yes, I'm gonna get the phone, and I'm gonna call the cops. We're gonna be okay." I shook my head again. "It was the only way," Annie insisted. "When I go, I need you to lock the door, and I don't want you to open it for anything, for anyone. Not for me, not for anyone. Promise me." I shook my head and Annie pressed her hand against my mouth, pushing my teeth against my lips so forcefully it made my eyes water. "Promise me, Em." Something smashed in the room next door. Annie brushed the hair from my face and gently tucked it behind my ear. "Promise," she mouthed, and unlocked the door as slowly as possible, the bolt scraping gently. I watched the curve of her shoulder disappear into the darkened hall, like the moon in ellipse. And when she was gone, I couldn't move or breathe for a second. Then I slammed the bolt shut just as something bounced off the outside of the door. A high-pitched scream ensued, followed by the handle rattling up and down hard enough to pop a screw loose. I watched it roll toward me on the tiles, and everything went still. I sat with my back to the door, holding the knife and wishing I was holding Annie's hand instead. The silence continued. For a moment, the only sound was that of my breath slowly filling the room. A voice broke the illusion of solitude. "Em?" A familiar voice came through the door. Startled, I gripped the knife even more firmly than before. "Honey, what's going on?" "Mom?" My voice cracked. "Mom, is that you?" I wrapped my arms around myself to keep from shaking. "Sweetie, it's okay. Just open the door. It's okay. Just let me in." The handle rattled again, gentler this time. "Just let me in. It's all okay." She banged impatiently on the door. I took my handle off the bolt. "Honey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I missed your birthday. I'm sorry I'm such a terrible mother. Please." Her voice broke. She started to cry. "Just let me in, baby. I'm so sorry." I screwed my eyes shut. She sounded so sad and so lost. I just wanted her to hold me, like she did when I was a kid. When I'd come in with a scraped knee after falling from the swings. Maybe this time she meant it. Perhaps it would all be okay. My hand found its way to the bolt again. My sister's voice came through the door, warm and gentle. "Yeah, Emily, let us in. It's all okay." My hand froze on the bolt. I tightened my grip on my weapon. Annie never called me by my full name. A hand banged on the door. Hand rattled. "Emily, let us in." Annie's voice came low and guttural, followed by the same shrill giggles from before. Mom spoke now, pleading and crying, her voice growling louder and louder. "Let us in! Let us in! Let us in!" She shouted over and over again, punctuated by her fists on the door. I thought about bedtime stories and all the demons and monsters we pray never crawl out from under our beds. "That's not my sister, and you're not my mother," I screamed through the door, hands over my head. I climbed into the bathtub, curled into the fetal position, and clutched the knife to my chest. I didn't know what was outside the door, but I knew it wasn't Andy. It wasn't the voice that scolded me whenever I changed the TV channel. The one that sang me happy birthday. The one that told me I was smart enough when I got bad grades. The one that read me stories about princesses that never wake up. It wasn't human. Bangs and yells came from downstairs, followed by footsteps of people running. A low guttural howl ripped through the house, filling the room until it felt like I was drowning in the sound. And then the door was kicked in. I screamed, covered my eyes, and waited to die. A moment later, arms found me, lifted me from the tub, and carried me from the room. I looked at the outside of the door as I was taken downstairs. The exterior was covered in long scrapes, claw marks, stretching to the floor. I found the hallway covered in soft, downy remains of torn-up pillows, making it appear as if it had snowed indoors. I watched the tiny feathers drift slowly as men in uniforms checked each of the rooms. It looked like they had been ripped apart by something feral. Outside, police cars and ambulances waited in our driveway, and there in the middle of it all was Annie, battered, blue and red light, and glowing in the dark like a neon angel. I threw myself from the officer's shoulder and ran to her. Then I held us together, broken pieces and all, standing under all those constellations we had concocted. Muffled screaming came from the ambulance, which rocked occasionally. Annie gently turned my head away, smiling so sadly it made my chest ache. I understood. It turns out there was no demon, no wild animal or bad men trying to break in. It was just Mom. out of her mind on booze, drugs, and everything in between. Coming to the end of a week-long binge, something had finally broke inside her head, and this time we couldn't put her back, no matter how hard we tried. Sometimes you fall one last time and never get back up. Annie had seen her rail-thin frame in the garden, blood dribbling from her mouth, track marks bulging from her forearms like unmapped roads. Desperate for one more hit, one more fix, she'd